Hello there, dear friends and neighbors. Welcome back to our shared garden of wisdom. Take a moment to look at your hands. If they're anything like mine, they've seen a few seasons. They've raised children, built homes, and most importantly, they've spent a lifetime in the soil. As we navigate our golden years, we often realize a small truth that most folks overlook when a plant struggles with slow growth. Small fruit or weak stems, we tend to blame what we can see. But the real story is never just in the leaves. It is always happening underground where a quiet hidden engine decides everything. Today, I want to invite you into the gentle world of kitchen science. We're going to talk about a simple baking staple sitting in your cupboard right now that can trigger root growth so intense it can increase biomass by nearly 30%. We aren't talking about expensive gadgets or harsh chemicals. We're talking about Saccharomyces cerevisiae, better known to us as baker's yeast. Part 1. The microscopic workforce in your pantry. Inside a single teaspoon of ordinary baker's yeast live millions of tiny sleeping workers. To the naked eye, it's just a beige powder, harmless and quiet. But the moment those cells touch warm water and a whisper of sugar, everything changes. They wake up, they multiply, and they begin a transformation that is far more important to your garden than rising dough. As yeast ferments, it releases a surge of B-complex vitamins, amino acids, and enzymes. These aren't just nutrients. They are the exact building blocks plants need to repair damaged tissue and ignite growth. Think of it as delivering pre-cut construction materials to a building site. The plant doesn't have to waste energy making them. It just starts building. But here is the most fascinating part. Yeast produces natural compounds that mimic plant hormones, specifically auxins and cytokinins. In the language of plants, these act like green traffic lights. Auxins whisper to the roots, urging them to branch and expand like fireworks underground, while cytokinins ensure the leaves keep pace with the explosion happening below. Together they create harmony, a full-body response that turns a tired plant into a vigorous, productive one. A question for you to ponder. Have you ever noticed a plant suddenly wake up after a long slump? What do you think was happening beneath the surface in that moment? Part 2. Rhizophagy, the feeding frenzy you never knew existed. For decades, we believed roots behaved like simple drinking straws, passively sipping up dissolved minerals. But modern science has uncovered a much more dramatic story called the rhizophagy cycle, or root eating. Imagine the very tips of your plant's roots. They look soft and fragile, but they are actually active hunters. When those living yeast microbes approach the root tips, the plant doesn't just wait for them to die and decay. No, it pulls the entire microbe inside its own cells. Once the yeast is trapped in the periplasmic space of the root cell, the plant unleashes a burst of reactive oxygen, specifically superoxide. This strips away the microbe's outer walls, carefully harvesting the nitrogen, iron, and minerals hidden inside. It is precise, efficient, and happening quietly beneath your feet every single day. But the story doesn't end with a meal. The microbes that survive this extraction are pushed back out through the tips of the root hairs. As they exit, they trigger the plant to grow even more root hairs, creating new gateways for the next round of nutrient capture. This forms a never-ending loop, a tiny engine of life that fuels itself. This is why a living yeast brew is so much more powerful than dead salts or synthetic powders. You are delivering an underground workforce that never stops turning. Part 3. Turning tired soil into a living sponge. We've all dealt with it, soil that has become chai kung, compacted and hard. Maybe you have sandy soil where water slips away like it has somewhere more important to be, or clay that is so tight the roots can't breathe. This is where our humble yeast shines as a bio-glue. When yeast ferments, it secretes extracellular polymeric substances, EPS. These are sticky, gentle polymers that cling to tiny particles of sand and silt, binding them together into stable aggregates. When your soil forms these aggregates, everything changes. The soil becomes a sponge. It absorbs water instead of rejecting it, holding moisture long after the sun goes down. Aeration improves. It creates tiny pockets and capillary channels where roots can breathe and microbes can grow. Protective cocoon. This living matrix of EPS has been shown to dramatically improve the survival of young seedlings in harsh, semi-arid conditions. For us, there's a lesson here. Sometimes the difference between thriving and failing isn't strength, it's support. Just as the soil needs this invisible glue to stay together, we thrive when our routines, relationships, and communities are steady. Part 4. The Senior Gardener's Soul. Vitality at any age. Gardening isn't just about the vegetables, it's about us. Science calls it horticultural therapy. Engaging with plants has been shown to decrease cortisol, the stress hormone, and increase serotonin, the feel-good hormone. For those of us over 55, the garden is a sanctuary for positive aging. It provides one. Cognitive restoration planning layouts and remembering watering schedules is a mini brain boost that maintains neural connections. 2. Physical strength. We don't need a gym. Pulling weeds and planting seeds is natural resistance training that improves balance and flexibility. 3. Spiritual renewal. Tending to growth cycles reminds us that renewal is always possible. There is a profound sense of purpose in nurturing something from a seed to a bloom. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What is one thing the garden has taught you about patience or resilience in your own life? Part 5. The Evergreen Recipe. How to do it right now. Let's get practical. How do we bring this power into our own backyards? The fermented gold standard recipe. 1. Warmth is key. Start with 1 liter, about 4 cups of lukewarm water. Aim for 105 to 115 degrees, Fahrenheit 40 to 46 degrees Celsius. Warm like your own hand. Too hot and you'll kill the workers. Too cold and they'll stay asleep. 2. The ignition fuel add. 2 tablespoons of dry yeast, approximately 20 grams, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. Remember, sugar isn't for the plant. It's the ignition fuel to tell the yeast to wake up and multiply. 3. Let it breathe. Cover with a breathable cloth. Never seal it airtight, or the carbon dioxide pressure could cause a pop that'll startle the whole neighborhood. 4. The wait. Let it sit for 1 to 2 hours for basic activation, or up to 24 hours for a richer, more potent enzyme culture. 5. The Golden Rule dilution. This concentrate is powerful. You must dilute it at a 1 to 10 ratio, 1 liter of brew to 10 liters of water. Using it straight can actually shock young roots. When to use it, use this tonic once when seedlings establish, once at flowering, and once when fruit begins to set. It's particularly magical for tomatoes, cucumbers, and strawberries. Part 6. Real results and a biological shield. Does it really work? Greenhouse trials have shown root biomass increases of nearly 30%. But yeast does more than just help things grow. It creates a biological shield. Because baker's yeast is a harmless fungus, it competes with dangerous pathogens like gray mold, mildew, and blight for space and food. When you water or spray with a yeast brew, you are filling the soil and leaf surfaces with friendly organisms that crowd out the enemies. It also triggers systemic resistance, essentially strengthening the plant's own immune system. A final lesson for the evergreen soul. As we wrap up our time together, let's look at the bigger picture. This journey wasn't just about yeast or roots. It was about a shift in how we see life. A plant only thrives when the invisible world beneath it is alive and nourished. In the same way, our own vitality, our joy, our energy is shaped by the quiet ecosystems within us. When we choose natural biological paths instead of chemical quick fixes, we are honoring ancient wisdom and returning to the rhythm of life. Even in the late seasons of our lives, there is always potential waiting quietly beneath the surface. It's never too late to burst back into color and purpose. So I leave you with this final question. What nourishment will you choose for your soul and your soil today? Thank you for spending this time with me. If you try this brew, come back and tell me about the new roots, the new blossoms, and the new growth you see. Until we meet again, keep your hands in the dirt and your heart in the garden. Happy growing, my friends. Stay wise, stay vital, and always, always keep growing.